Let's go back to the beginning, the very beginning, to a place where presumably everything was always perfect all the time, the biblical paradise known as the Garden of Eden. Whether or not such a place actually existed is an enigma that has intrigued man since the beginning of time. And if it did exist, where was this earthly paradise? Can satellite technology finally reveal long-hidden clues that might lead us to it? Right at the moment, there are people from every corner of the world interested in these photographs, because, believe it or not, one of these satellite images may lead the way to the Garden of Eden. Like a moth returning to a flame, scholars throughout the centuries have searched for the Garden of Eden using an ancient biblical roadmap. But time seems to have erased key landmarks that were crucial to finding this magical place. Until now. Do pictures taken from space reveal these long-lost signposts? Have scientists finally uncovered evidence that proves the Garden of Eden was a real place? Or is technology leading us away from the truth? Is it possible that in order to find the secret garden, we must return to a source that's thousands of years old? Have we found the Garden of Eden? Ancient writings found in the book of Genesis provide us with several tantalizing clues that may point to the location of the renowned paradise known as Eden. But these hints aren't as specific as researchers would like. Is it possible that there's more than one spot on earth that fits the biblical roadmap? And can we ever know which locale is the genuine article? Our amazing journey begins in just a moment. Eden North and Eden South. That's how the two leading theories for the location of the Garden of Eden might be described. One camp says that paradise on earth was located in the northern part of the ancient world. The other insists that it's thousands of miles to the south, and they've got the satellite images to prove it. Could it be that one of these factions has actually found the Garden of Eden? Both claim to be using the same biblical documentation to pinpoint its location. So why do they disagree? And how do these theories stack up against the ancient evidence?
The location of the Garden of Eden is defined by the rivers that flow from and around it. Genesis chapter 2 tells us that a river watering the garden flowed from Eden, and there it divided into 4 headwaters. Now, each of these rivers is mentioned in the biblical text: the Pishon, the Gihon, the Tigris, and the Euphrates. Now, the names of the 4 rivers would seem to give us the precise geographical location of the Garden of Eden. All you have to do is find the location of the start of these 4 rivers, and you found the garden. But it's not that easy, because while the Tigris and Euphrates still exist, the other 2 rivers have been lost to time.
How could anyone find the Garden of Eden when 2 of the 4 landmark rivers are missing? For thousands of years, it was an impossible task. But in recent years, satellite technology has spawned much more serious searches for the fabled paradise. What clues can we glean from this heavenly view of the earth? And will they be enough to lead us to the Garden of Eden?
The most likely location for the 2 lost rivers, the Pishon and the Gihon, would be those places where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers come close enough together that they could meander and cross. Satellite imaging confirms what we already know about the possible location of the Garden of Eden. The Bible mentions 4 rivers: the Tigris, the Euphrates, the Gihon, and the Pishon. The Tigris and Euphrates are easily identified both in geography in the Bible and in southern Turkey and the Persian Gulf areas where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers come close together. And this is a floodplain, meandering takes place, the rivers change course, and thereby we have the opportunity for 4 rivers to be at one place.
Is this the location of the Garden of Eden? At first glance, it's obvious that this area of Turkey satisfies the requirement of the 4 rivers. But does the Bible provide any other clues that might prove or disprove this theory? And if so, do these clues point to a different location entirely?
The Bible makes some qualifying statements about where these 4 rivers of Eden are located. Especially interesting are the descriptions of the two lost rivers. First of all, the Pishon is said to have flowed around the entire land of Havilah, and the Bible tells us that Havilah has great natural resources in the form of gold, onyx, and bdellium. This is an aromatic resin similar to myrrh. The ancients regarded it almost as valuable as gold.
Is there such a thing as the land of Havilah? If so, it's certainly not listed on modern world maps. But can we find Havilah by locating its gold? And will this intriguing path lead us back to Turkey or someplace entirely new?
In searching for the location of the Garden of Eden, researchers have to use all the clues available to them. So locating the land the Bible calls Havilah is key. Biblical archaeologists believe Havilah is located in western Saudi Arabia. Here we find one of the richest and longest producing gold mines in the world, known as the Cradle of Gold because it was first mined in early biblical times. In fact, some Bible scholars point to this operation as the most likely candidate for King Solomon's mine. The problem with locating the land of Havilah in western Saudi Arabia is the fact that today the area is one big scorching desert without any apparent traces of rivers having existed there. At least that's what researchers believed until Landsat images taken from space allowed them to make a startling discovery. A world-famous geologist from Boston University, Farouk Elbaz, examined these images and discovered clear evidence of an extinct river, which he named the Kuwait River because at one time it flowed across northern Arabia and reached all the way to Kuwait. So now we've got an extinct river, an area that's rich in gold, and that same area has the natural resources to produce bdellium, just like the Bible says it should. Based on this evidence, some scholars assert that the Kuwait River was probably the Pishon River named in Genesis. In terms of geological evidence, in the mid-1960s, a German meteorological expedition to the Persian Gulf discovered that the Gulf had once been completely dry land thousands of years ago. The scientists also discovered submerged river valleys and sand dunes in the northern part of the Persian Gulf.
Could the extinct river of northern Arabia be the lost Pishon of Eden? It seems to fit the description given in the Bible. But what about the Gihon River? Is there any trace of it to be found?
Another clue the Bible gives us to the location of Eden concerns the second lost river, that is the Gihon, which is said to wind through the land of Cush. In the 17th century, translators of the King James Bible equated the biblical land of Cush with the ancient region of northeast Africa known as Cush. But a recent discovery casts doubt on this conclusion. In fact, many Bible scholars now believe that the King James translators made a mistake, and the name of the land where the Gihon River flowed is actually Kashu. If this is true, then we're really onto something, because Kashu is a land archaeologists can identify. It belonged to a people called the Kashites, who conquered Mesopotamia in about 1500 BC, and we know that ancient Mesopotamia is located in present-day Iraq.
Because of the misidentification of the land of Cush, efforts to find the Garden of Eden have been stymied for thousands of years. Could it be that the final piece of the puzzle has finally fallen into place? And will it now reveal the location of the last missing river?
Based on this new identification of the land of Cush, many scholars have concluded that the Gihon River of the Bible is probably the Karun River of today. The Karun's course begins in Iran and flows southwesterly toward the Persian Gulf. Now, the Bible says that the four rivers of Eden all join together to form a single waterway. Today, the Tigris, the Euphrates, and the Karun all join to form the Shat al-Arab, a single waterway that empties into the northern tip of the Persian Gulf. So, if all the clues are put together, some scholars conclude that the Garden of Eden must have been located somewhere at the head of the Persian Gulf at a time when all four rivers joined and flowed through that area.
Has the Garden of Eden been found in the area of the Persian Gulf? If so, the political situation in this part of the world would make it difficult to search for the lost paradise. But as it turns out, a search of any kind may be entirely pointless because the site may be out of reach forever. Could it be that the latest round of satellite photos indicate the Garden of Eden is now underwater? Or does the true Garden of Eden exist in yet another location? The compelling answers when we return. On the western facade of the Dome of the Rock Mosque in Jerusalem There's an Arabic inscription which reads, "The rock of the temple from the Garden of Eden." The northern gate of the mosque is called the Gate of Paradise, and just inside this gate lies a stone of green jasper about half a meter square called the Stone of Eden. Is it possible that the building materials for one of the holiest sites in the world come from the Garden of Eden? Has satellite technology finally revealed its actual location? And if so, can we go there?
With the discovery of the extinct Pishon River in Saudi Arabia and the identification of the Gihon River in present-day Iran, all the pieces of the Eden puzzle have fallen into place. But, although the approximate location of the garden has been found, we're no closer to actually seeing it than we were before. The reason being that climate changes have caused the waters of the Persian Gulf to rise since biblical times. And that means the area where the garden was located has been overtaken by the sea.
I believe the Garden of Eden was in the area of Mesopotamia for 3 reasons. 1, it was the area of ancient civilization. We know that because we find more ancient artifacts there than any other area of the world. 2, it was in the Fertile Crescent where we had lush vegetation several thousands of years ago. And 3rd, because it was in that area between the Tigris and Euphrates River that is mentioned in the book of Genesis.
One of the most amazing artifacts in my collection dates back to about 4400 to 4000 BC. It is a stone. It is made in the pictograph form of an ancient Sumerian river trading boat. On the back of this artifact are engraved Sumerian pictograph symbols that reveal an astounding story. This story relates to a mountain-sized meteorite bouncing off the planet Jupiter and sent plunging into south-central Arabia. As a meteorite entered the atmosphere traveling at 36,000 miles per hour, it broke into pieces. Part of it penetrated the south-central Arabia area, creating the Wabar crater fields and possibly destroying the biblical land of Havilah. The second part pelted the Gulf of Oman and the Persian Gulf area, creating a massive tidal wave and the biblical flood described in the book of Genesis. Based on these catastrophic events, it is very likely the Garden of Eden was buried under the flooding waters of the Persian Gulf.
After thousands of years of searching, has man once again been defeated in his quest for paradise? Is the Garden of Eden lost forever under the salty waves of the Persian Gulf, or is it possible that all this technology has led us on a wild goose chase? Could it be that the real Garden of Eden is tucked away in a remote corner of the earth, and has one man gone back in time to find it?
Apart from the story in Genesis, we do have traditions from outside the Bible, including the Babylonians and Sumerians, who mention a magical land beyond the mountains to the north.
Could the legends of ancient cultures lead us to the authentic location of the Garden of Eden? In April of 1997, archaeologist David Roll set out to find the lost paradise using information gleaned from Sumerian clay tablets that are more than 5,000 years old.
There's a very ancient epic poem entitled Enmerkar and the Lord of Aratta. Now this place Aratta, which Enmerkar's vizier goes to, is beyond the mountains. It's probably the biblical Ararat, the place where Noah's Ark came to rest. And this place, this Aratta, also has a plain. The Sumerian word is Eden, which is the biblical Eden. The Eden is a Sumerian word. It means plain, open land, uncultivated land. It's the sort of thing you would imagine for an Adam and Eve type situation, where we don't have real cultivation at this time. Enmerkar is the king of Uruk, and now this is in southern Iraq today. And his envoy is sent across the mountains, the Zagros Mountains, to a place called Aratta, north of the mountains. And he brings messages from the king of Uruk, Enmerkar. So in fact he's the first postman in history. Diplomatic relations between Uruk and Aratta weren't going too well. In fact, after about 15 years of arguments between the two kings, Enmerkar eventually invaded Aratta and brought back gold and semi-precious stones to adorn a temple in Uruk. And of course Eden itself was rich in gold and semi-precious stones. The envoy's journey from Uruk to Aratta involved crossing through 7 gates. Now these gates are like mountain passes or gorges through the mountains. So you're crossing 7 mountain ranges to reach Aratta and therefore Eden. Now this may be similar to what we call the Hebrew tradition of the 7 heavens. And when you reach the 7th heaven, of course, you're in paradise.
How could the Garden of Eden be located in the mountains of western Iran? After all, satellite photos have led other experts to place the biblical paradise thousands of miles away. Could it be that the ancient record is more reliable than modern-day technology? And does the evidence show that the third location fits the biblical description even better than the other two possibilities? 4 major rivers can be found in this remote corner of western Iran. They include the Tigris, the Euphrates, the Eris, and the Wizun. While 2 of the 4 names fit the biblical roadmap, the other 2 names bear little resemblance to those of the lost rivers of the Bible. Is it possible for these modern waterways to be linked with the Pishon and Gihon rivers of Eden?
Looking for the Gihon River is rather difficult. The name doesn't exist today in the modern topography of the region. However, when the Islamic invasion took place in the 8th century AD, they came across a river which we call the Aras today, and they identified as the Gaihun, and this may well be the Hebrew Gihon. 100 years ago, if you looked at encyclopedias, you would have seen the name Gaihun or Gihon Aras.
How is it possible that scholars of the 19th century made the connection between these 2 rivers, while 20th century scholars seem to have missed it? More importantly, are there additional clues to Eden's whereabouts hidden in Victorian-era publications?
Victorian scholars were aware of a land called Kossia, classical Kossia, which was in the land area of Azerbaijan, and through it flowed the Aras River. And this has identified them with the land of Kush, same as Kossia, through which the Gihon flowed. So the Gihon Aras is the biblical Gihon flowing through the land of Kush.
Were Victorian scholars correct in placing the land of Kush in modern-day Azerbaijan? And is there any evidence that the name Kush has survived to this day? Could it be that old-fashioned scholarship has trumped modern technology once again? During his journey to the mountains of Iran, archaeologist David Rohl used information taken from an ancient Sumerian legend to find several key signposts. But were these clues actually leading him to the biblical land of Eden? Several more pieces of the puzzle needed to fall into place before he could be sure of his find. Would it be possible to locate the last missing waterway, or was the Pishon River gone forever?
The book of Genesis tells us that the Garden of Eden is in the east of Eden, in other words, within the boundaries of the land of Eden. And to the east of our area is a very fertile valley surrounded by high mountain peaks. Now this valley is bordered on the northern side by a mountain ridge called Kushadag, and Kushadag in the modern language means the mountain of Kush, and Kush is the land beyond to the north of this valley. Identifying the Gihon is a breeze compared to trying to find the Pishon, the 4th river. Now we don't have any rivers in this region with that similar sounding name. However, the 4th major river in the mountain area here is called the Kezel Uizan, which means the long gold in Iranian. And we think this name Uizan may be the original Iranian version of the biblical Pishon. The only difference is the letters U and P have been interchanged. So we get from Uizan to Pishon or Pishon. Chapter 2 of Genesis tells us very clearly that 4 of the headwaters or sources of 4 great rivers from the region start out in Eden. So all you have to do is actually trace the rivers back to their sources, and there you are in Eden. So why hasn't anybody thought of this before?
Has archaeologist David Rohl actually located the biblical land of Eden? His identification of the 4 rivers of the Bible is certainly startling, and the connection he's made to the land of Cush bears further witness to the theory's credibility. But what about the land of Havilah that's spoken of in Genesis? Does David Rohl's Eden fit the bill?
This 4th river of Eden, the Pishon, flowed through the land of Havilah. On a modern map, this would be Angaran province in western Iran. And this area is indeed rich in gold and semi-precious stones, just as Havilah was rich in gold and semi-precious stones. The name Kezel Uizan, the river, means the golden Uizan, or in the biblical terms, the golden Pishon. And in this area, there are many ancient gold mines.
It was April of 1997 when David Rohl set off to locate the land of Eden. And so far, all of his research appears to be paying off. The 4 biblical rivers of Eden had been located along with the lands of Cush and Havilah. But where was the actual garden?
The land of Eden is a vast area. But Genesis 2 tells us specifically that the Garden of Eden is in the east of Eden. In other words, within Eden, but in the eastern part. And that's where you have to look for Adam's garden. We have to realize that the Garden of Eden is a natural place. It's not an artificial garden. The Hebrew words Gan Eden mean a walled garden, but it's not an artificial type of garden. We must envisage a natural space, perhaps a valley surrounded by high mountains. And the Greek word paradise, paradisa, coming from the Persian, also means a royal parkland or enclosed hunting ground. So both ideas tell us that we should be looking for a valley surrounded by high mountains. This valley of the garden is a remarkable place. It's bounded on its west side by a great lake, Lake Urmia, with its marshes. The valley itself is long and thin, running from west to east. Through it flows a beautiful river, which comes down from the mountains. To the south and to the north are high peaks protecting the valley, and to the east a pass which leads out of the garden towards a place called Nukti in the local language, which means belonging to Nukt, and Nukt could be the biblical nod. Climatologists have worked out that this area was very much lusher in the ancient times, several thousand years ago. The valley itself was protected. It had a sort of microclimate with warm winds coming in from the west. So it was very, very fertile, lots and lots of water, lots of areas to grow plants and to cultivate. This really was a paradise on earth.
With modern satellite technology giving us a God's eye view of our planet, modern man can look down on Earth as if it were a treasure map. But can he use this knowledge to pinpoint the location of what may have once been an earthly paradise? As we've seen, there's more than one X that marks the spot of the treasure man has sought for thousands of years. Will we ever be able to determine which of these locations, if any, was the actual Garden of Eden? Or are we wasting our time looking for a place that no longer exists?
There are those that believe the Garden of Eden was located near today's Tigris and Euphrates rivers, because those are the rivers that are mentioned in the book of Genesis. However, if you also accept the Genesis chapter 7 account of Noah's flood as being historically accurate, then it's easy to understand how the destructiveness of this flood would probably bury the Garden of Eden and any pre-flood rivers under thousands of feet of sediment. It would seem the survivors of the flood would give the rivers around Mount Ararat the same names that they had before the flood, the Tigris and the Euphrates.
Does the Garden of Eden still exist, or is it lost forever? Whichever side of the argument you happen to choose, there's no denying that the story of the garden is found in many of the oldest cultural records known to man. For example, the Chinese language may have a reference to Eden embedded in its symbol for the word west. Literally translated, the symbol means two people in a garden. Did the people of this great Eastern culture originally come from the west, perhaps somewhere in the Tigris-Euphrates Valley? And does their symbolic language commemorate Adam and Eve in their garden home? The answers to these mysteries may still be beyond our reach, but the search for the garden will undoubtedly continue, because, in a way, it represents a quest that all people can relate to, the quest to return home. Something to think about